My name is Lillian Morse, and my whole life, my mother and sister made sure I knew my place. But the day Jenna pulled up to my stone mansion in her beat-up SUV, thinking she was just visiting my little rental, I met her at the door with a tray of lemon scones and a key she thought was hers. She dropped it. "Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below. And tell me, have you ever hidden your success from people who never believed in you?" The wind cut through my coat like I wasn't even wearing one. It had been drizzling since morning, but the moment we stepped out of the black town car and onto the muddy gravel path leading to Dad's grave, the rain shifted, meaner, sharper. The kind of rain that feels like it's trying to strip you of dignity. We stood just outside Philadelphia, the cemetery grounds quiet except for the minister's voice and the occasional snap of umbrellas against the wind. I was dry-eyed. I hadn't cried. Not because I didn't love him, but because I couldn't afford to break. Not here, not in front of them. My mother stood stiff beside me in a navy wool coat that probably cost more than my entire month's rent. Evelyn Morse. If ice could take human form, it might try to warm itself by standing next to her. Her gloved hand trembled slightly as the pastor read the final prayer, but not from emotion. When he closed his book, she leaned in, just enough so only I could hear. "He always bobbied you, you know." My breath caught, sharp and cold. She didn't look at me. Her eyes were locked on the closed casket as if daring him to get back up and contradict her. Jenna snorted beside her, the laugh of someone who always knew the punchline before you did. "Good luck paying rent this month," she added loudly, and not even pretending to whisper. "Now that Daddy's not around to cover for your little projects." I heard a few murmurs behind us, distant cousins, neighbors, old friends from the community. My mother gave a tight smile to one of them as if she hadn't just gutted me in 3 words. I didn't turn. I didn't give Jenna the satisfaction. I just stared at the gleaming mahogany, the casket I had chosen because my father once said he didn't want anything too flashy, just something solid. I had paid for it, quietly. In full, not that they knew. They never asked. Jenna's voice again, louder this time, like she was on stage instead of burying our father. "Some people think dreams pay the bills, they don't. She's always been the delicate one," my mother told Mrs. Barnett, her longtime bridge partner, who nodded sympathetically as though I weren't standing right there. "Carl spoiled her rotten. Always said she had potential." She rolled her eyes. "We see how that turned out." I clenched my jaw so hard I thought I might chip a molar. It wasn't the first time they humiliated me in public. It wouldn't be the last, unless I changed something, but today wasn't about me. It was about Dad. He was the only one who ever saw me clearly. The one who noticed when I got quiet. The one who mailed me a $50 bill and a note saying, "Just in case the rent's short, kiddo," every single month without ever asking if I needed it. He believed in me in a way no one else ever had. And now he was gone. When the crowd began to disperse, I stood frozen until my shoes were soaked through. Someone, maybe Jenna, nudged my elbow, muttering something about how I was milking the drama. I didn't respond. The casket lowered. The dirt hit wood, and something inside me shifted. I wasn't crying. But I was burning. The living room smelled like lemon polish and reheated casseroles. My father's favorite recliner had been removed, probably by Jenna, and replaced with a borrowed folding chair to make room for the guests. Grief hovered, but so did judgment. Every wall was heavy with framed family photos, and in each one Jenna somehow stood closer to center, always just a little bit ahead. I kept near the entryway, sipping lukewarm coffee from a chipped mug I remembered using in high school. People moved in and out in waves, offering condolences that never quite reached me. Some nodded politely. Others hesitated like they didn't recognize me. "She's the younger one, right?" "No, that's Jenna." "Oh, her." Moments like that pile up fast. Jenna floated through the room like a tour guide, all charm and pearls and practiced sorrow. She wore a pale gray sweater dress that probably cost what I paid for rent, and her voice had that tone that said, "I've always had it together, unlike some people." "She's doing okay, considering," I overheard her saying to Mrs. Donnelly near the fireplace. "But you know how Lillian is, always chasing some dream, tech stuff or whatever. Still renting in West Philly, I mean, at her age." My age, I'm 33, not ancient, just not someone who made her success loud enough for this family to notice. That was my mistake. I offered to help her find a realtor, Jenna continued with a gentle laugh. But she's particular, that laugh. Like I was a fussy toddler, not a fully grown woman who worked 16-hour days and ran product teams twice the size of Jenna's little real estate office. I moved toward the kitchen, needing air or something close to it. The clink of glassware and murmurs of gossip hit me like a second wave. I told Carl years ago, my mother said in her usual half-sigh, half-smirk, Lillian's not practical, she's always been idealistic, not like Jenna. Jenna understands how the world works. She does, Aunt Kathy agreed, spooning potato salad into a plastic container. And look at that townhouse she's buying, she's made smart choices. She's earned her place, Mom said. Lillian's still renting, still chasing something. Never quite lands. They clucked in agreement. My hand tightened around my phone. Don't be bitter, I whispered to myself. Don't give them the show they want. I straightened my spine, tucked my hair behind my ear, and stepped out onto the back porch with practiced grace. I stared out at the tiny backyard, its grass overgrown and hedges misshapen. It looked exactly like it had 20 years ago, like no one ever made room for change. I took out my phone and pressed it to my ear even though the screen was dark. Hey, it's Lillian, I said aloud, voice steady. Sorry I had to step away. Can we reschedule the call for tomorrow? I'm still at the wake. It wasn't a real call, but it gave me an exit. No one stopped me as I walked through the narrow hallway, past the gossip, past the judgment, past the framed high school graduation photo of Jenna smiling with her award for most likely to succeed. I didn't say goodbye. I just left. By the time I reached my car parked 3 blocks away, because Jenna had taken the driveway and the curb in front, I could finally breathe again. The drizzle had stopped. The clouds still hung low, but there was a stubborn beam of sunlight trying to break through. I slid into the driver's seat and stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror. They still saw me as the one who never landed, but I had landed. Quietly. Intentionally. Outside their view. Let them keep thinking I was lost. Let them all keep underestimating me. They had no idea what I was building. No idea what was coming. The walls of my apartment were thin. I could hear my upstairs neighbor's toddler throwing tantrums at midnight and the couple across the hall having whisper fights that were anything but quiet. My sink dripped. The paint peeled around the window frame. And I loved every square inch of it, because it was mine. Not technically, I rented, but it was the first space where no one's voice overshadowed mine. Where no one told me who I was or wasn't. Where I could work as long as I wanted, sleep when I could, and build something in silence. I started sleeping with my laptop next to my bed. Not for comfort, but access. Sometimes I'd wake at 2 a.m. with a design idea or a bug fix solution, and I'd sit up, bleary-eyed, typing in the blue glow until it made sense again. Tech work is strange. It's equal parts logic and obsession. Most people don't understand what it takes to build something from nothing. But I did. I whispered it to myself like a prayer some nights. Just a little longer, you're almost there. The office was in Manyunk, tucked in the back of a refurbished warehouse that still smelled faintly of sawdust and ambition. My title when I started, Senior Product Manager. Respectable but invisible, like me. But I worked. While others clocked out at 5, I stayed late, rewriting specs, listening to engineers vent, fixing timelines no one else caught. I learned how to speak fluently in problems, and how to solve them faster than anyone expected. No one held the door open for me, so I learned how to pick the lock. I turned down happy hours, declined weekend getaways, pushed back every invitation Jenna tossed my way, baby showers for friends of hers I didn't know, brunches where I was expected to smile while she recounted her escrow dramas. I didn't have time for performance. I was building something real. One Friday night in early spring, we had a company dinner in Center City, a swanky rooftop place with heat lamps and glowing table candles. Everyone dressed up. I wore the same black wrap dress I'd worn to Dad's funeral, but with heels this time and a quiet confidence that hadn't been there before. Champagne flutes clinked. Conversations swirled. "Can I have everyone's attention for a sec?" my boss, Marcus, said, standing near the edge of the table. He was a tall man with a gentle face and the kind of voice that made people hush without trying. "Before we lose anyone to cocktails or dessert, I want to share something." He looked at me. My stomach did a slow somersault. "Some of you already know this, but it's official as of this afternoon. Lillian's been promoted to VP of Product." There was a beat of silence, then cheers, claps, a few surprised whistles. I smiled, not wide, just enough. "Speech," someone shouted. I stood slowly, napkin folded, hands steady. Thank you, I said, voice calm. I've been working on something. Laughter rippled through the table, but I meant it. That was all I said. Marcus grinned, he knew. He'd seen the outlines of what I was building, the side project, the prototype, the idea I'd hinted at but never fully explained. Not yet. Later, he pulled me aside by the balcony railing. You sure you don't want to share it with the team? He asked. Whatever you're cooking up, it's good. They'd be lucky to be part of it. Not yet, I replied. It's not ready to share. He nodded, not pushing. As I left the restaurant that night, the city felt different. Not louder, not brighter, just more mine. Like I'd finally earned the right to take up space in it. I took the long way home, walking several blocks through Old City with the collar of my coat pulled high and my thoughts racing. I passed brick buildings that had been here for centuries, and wondered how many other women had walked alone through these streets, quietly planning things no one saw coming. When I finally unlocked my apartment door, I kicked off my heels, sat cross-legged on the floor, and opened my laptop. I wasn't tired. I was ready. 6 months later, I walked into a quiet law office just off Walnut Street, heart thudding under my blazer like I'd swallowed a hummingbird. The receptionist smiled, polite and unreadable. Ms. Morse, I nodded. Third door on the left, they're waiting for you. The hallway was narrow, lined with black and white photos of Philadelphia landmarks and the smell of lemon wood polish, same as the wake. But this time, I wasn't walking toward whispered judgment. I was walking into my future. The room was sleek and modern, all glass and brushed steel. My attorney, Howard Lynn, stood when I entered. I liked him because he never asked how I, a woman working in product, managed to pull this off. He just reviewed the contracts with a sharp eye and a steady tone. Ready to close? He asked. I nodded, trying not to fidget with the pen in my hand. The buyers, a West Coast tech giant that had been circling for weeks, had finally agreed to my price. 7 figures. No earn-out. Full IP transfer. They wanted my prototype, my UX flow, and the AI integration I'd spent 2 years refining in secret. I wanted the freedom to move forward unattached, unseen. They got what they wanted. So did I. The moment I signed, Howard smiled faintly and closed the folder. Congratulations, Lillian, you're officially done. Done, and just beginning. We shook hands. I left the office alone, my phone buzzing with offers, updates, and one persistent text from Jenna that read, "Need help choosing backsplash tile, you free?" I didn't reply. Instead, I made my way to a tucked-away French bistro in Queen Village where my best friend Marla was already waiting, sipping wine and eyeing the menu like she wasn't sure if she could afford anything on it, which was funny, because I'd already called ahead and told them I was covering everything. Marla and I had met freshman year at Drexel, back when we both still believed we had to smile twice as hard to be taken half as seriously in our male-dominated classes. We'd seen each other through layoffs, bad dates, worse bosses, and 3 rounds of broken startups. But tonight I wasn't broken. Okay, she said, leaning in. Spill, you've been dodging my text all week and now you're glowing like someone who got proposed to by Jeff Bezos. I smirked and poured her more wine. Let's just say, the little side project finally got noticed. Her eyes widened. Wait, did they buy it? I nodded once. Lillian, her voice dropped. Girl, are you rich? I lifted my glass in a silent toast. Marla let out a gasp that turned into laughter. You're serious? Oh my God, like how rich are we talking? Is this? You can finally stop renting money, or I just bought a vineyard in Napa money, I grinned. Let's just keep it between us. She leaned back, fanning herself with the cocktail menu. Are you gonna tell Jenna? Nope, her smile softened. You're not going to rub it in. I don't need to, I said quietly. She's not even looking. We clinked glasses. Later that night, after Marla hugged me 5 times and whispered, I always knew you'd do something huge. I sat in my car under the soft haze of a street lamp, staring at the Zillow listing I'd bookmarked 6 weeks earlier. A stone mansion in Chestnut Hill, gated, ivy-covered, 3 stories of handcrafted details and unapologetic elegance. It looked like something out of a movie, or someone else's life, but it wasn't. I clicked Contact Agent and sent the message I'd rehearsed in my head 100 times, interested in making an all-cash offer. No contingencies. Buyer prefers to remain anonymous. By noon the next day, the offer was accepted. Just like that, the house was mine. The brunch was Jenna's idea. Of course it was. Somewhere between her third, we just need to finalize the offer, and her 4th retelling of how the seller wasn't motivated enough for her standards. I sipped my lukewarm coffee and reminded myself, you asked for this. You wanted the data, the reactions, the proof that nothing had changed. We sat at a sunlit table near the front window of a cafe Jenna had discovered in the main line read. She'd seen it on someone's Instagram. She wore a sage green blazer over a white silk blouse, her lipstick immaculate even at 10 a.m. Our mother, Evelyn, wore pearls, sunglasses pushed into her perfect gray blonde waves like a magazine ad for Judgment. I came straight from a site visit, wore jeans and a navy sweater. No makeup. No explanation. Lillian, Mom said, cutting into her eggs Benedict like it had personally offended her. I hope you've at least started looking at places by now. Jenna's little townhouse isn't even finished and she's already planning renovations. I kept my eyes on my plate, casually buttering my toast. Still in the apartment, just not quite ready to buy. She snorted. Typical. That word again. Like I was a brand of inconvenience that never expired. Jenna perked up at the opening, leaning forward like a cat stretching before the pounce. You'll have to come see my place once I'm settled. Not a mansion or anything, but at least you'll finally get to say you've been inside a real house. She laughed lightly, like it was just a cute little jab between sisters. The kind you're not allowed to get mad about because it's funny, see? I stirred my coffee slowly, watching the swirl of cream settle into something clouded but calm. I'd love to help you settle in, I said. Jenna blinked, thrown for a second. Then she smiled with just the corner of her mouth. Oh, you don't have to do all that, she replied. I mean, you're probably swamped with work, right? Those long nights in your cute little office corner. She tilted her head sympathetically. I nodded. Still burning the candle, tech world never sleeps. Mom sighed dramatically, setting down her fork. You know, Lillian, I keep hoping one day you'll choose stability over chasing. Whatever it is you think you're chasing. Jenna has a real career. Real estate is practical. Real estate is trending, Jenna chimed, reaching for her mimosa. I'm in at the perfect time. I could probably help you find something, within budget of course. I smiled. Thanks, but I'm fine where I am. She tilted her glass toward me. You always say that. I raised mine in return, and I always mean it. They didn't ask why. They never did. If something didn't fit into their definition of success, a definition that involved countertops and dinner parties and matching patio furniture, it simply didn't exist. I let them talk. About fixtures. About rising interest rates. About how Jenna was planning to paint the guest room grayish because it made her feel calm. I nodded when appropriate, sipped my coffee when I wanted to scream. I was sitting across from two women who had never once asked what made me feel calm. As the check arrived, my mother reached for her purse in that exaggerated way she did when she expected someone else to say, "No, I've got it." I let her finish the performance, then handed the waiter my card. "Oh, Lil, you don't have to," Jenna started. "It's fine," I said. "You're going to need every penny for that grayish paint." Her laugh was quick but unsure. We left the cafe in silence for a moment until my mother broke it with, "You know, your father would have wanted you to put down roots. He hated the idea of you floating around in that rental." I paused on the sidewalk, turning just slightly. "He didn't hate anything about my life," I said. "He just didn't talk about it to you." She stared at me, mouth opening then closing. I smiled, gentle. "I'll bring cupcakes to the move-in day, let me know when." Then I walked to my car, sunlight bouncing off the hood of my rental, yes, still rented, but already knowing the day she walked into my house, everything would change. The townhouse smelled like fresh paint and self-congratulation. White trim, pale oak floors. The kind of minimalist aesthetic Jenna called elevated simplicity, but I knew she'd borrowed the phrase from a home staging podcast. I stood on the front step in jeans and sneakers, arms full, cupcakes from my favorite bakery in East Passyunk, a small bouquet of white tulips, and 2 boxes labeled kitchen in my neat, blocky handwriting. Jenna opened the door with a smile so tight it barely bent her lip gloss. "Well, look who actually showed up." "Brought cupcakes," I said, holding up the box. "Salted caramel and red velvet." Her eyes flicked down to the labels on the boxes I carried. "You didn't have to do all that." "I know," I replied, stepping inside without being invited. "I wanted to." The place was new construction clean. No furniture yet, just echoes bouncing off empty walls and pride swelling in the corners. The kind of pride that insists it built itself. Mom emerged from the back, smoothing a plastic drop cloth like it was silk. "Oh, Lillian," she said, eyebrows lifting. "You're here. Don't sound so surprised," I said, setting the cupcakes gently on the counter. She came over, air-kissed my cheek, and tilted her head at the boxes. You've always been so good at these little chores, it's your role. My role: to carry, to lift, to smooth over. Jenna was walking through the kitchen now, showing off the soft close cabinets. They're imported, she said. Took forever to get them delivered. I ran my fingers along the countertop edge and said nothing. You can just leave those boxes by the island, Mom called. That's where we're setting up Jenna's espresso station. Because of course she was getting an espresso station. I stepped into the pantry, quietly placing the flowers in an empty glass vase I found under the sink. Then, when no one was looking, I opened the top drawer next to the fridge, already labeled in Jenna's neat handwriting, "Move-in funds." I slipped in the envelope. $1,000 in cash, folded neatly. No note. No signature. It wasn't a flex, it was closure. The money didn't mean anything to me anymore, not in the way it once had. But I remembered what it felt like to open a drawer and realize someone believed in you, even if only in secret. Let Jenna think it came from Mom. Let Mom assume it came from the realtor. They didn't need to know. They weren't looking anyway. Back in the living room, Mom and Jenna were discussing curtain rods. So much light in here, Mom said. I always said Jenna had an eye for quality. She didn't rush into just anything. I nodded like I agreed. I didn't. Jenna turned back toward me, arms crossed. Do you think your apartment could fit something like this? A built-in shelving unit? Maybe, I said, if I knocked out a wall or two. They laughed. I smiled. They saw what they wanted to see, and I was fine with that. I stayed for another 20 minutes, carrying in 2 more boxes, taking pictures when Jenna asked, even slicing the cupcakes while they argued over drawer liners. I didn't say much. I didn't need to, because every word they didn't say, every assumption they made was just helping me build the silence they'd choke on later. As I left, Jenna hugged me half-heartedly. Thanks again, she said, almost meaning it. I waved once from the front step. Let me know when you're ready for housewarming. She called. Of course, might be a while, gotta get the place photo ready. I nodded and turned down the path, keys already in hand. She thought I was going back to my little rental. Let her. The housewarming was a Saturday afternoon affair, just posh enough to impress, just casual enough to pretend it wasn't. Jenna had curated every inch of it, from the charcuterie board arranged like a Pinterest ad to the jazz playlist humming in the background, looping through songs none of us actually listened to. I arrived last, on purpose. Wearing a soft gray wrap dress and simple flats, I brought a bottle of wine so obscure Jenna would be too proud to admit she didn't recognize it. I handed it to her at the door with a smile. Oh, she said, lifting the label. Is this Spanish? Basque, I replied. Slightly effervescent. It's aged longer than your mortgage approval. Her laugh was delayed, forced. Inside, the house was filled with familiar faces. Mom's bridge friends, Jenna's real estate colleagues, a few of our cousins. Everyone sipping from stemless glasses, nodding at the quartz countertops, murmuring compliments like, so tasteful and not too flashy, just right. I wove through the conversations with ease. It was a dance I'd learned a long time ago. Never be too quiet, never be too loud. Offer help, deflect attention. Smile just wide enough. Mom was in her element, perched near the kitchen island like a queen on her throne. She wore a fitted navy blouse with pearl buttons and spoke with the confidence of someone who believed compliments were a birthright. She caught sight of me and raised her glass. Lillian, she called out, come join us, we were just about to toast. I stepped forward as guests quieted, the music dipping low. Jenna stood beside her, beaming as if she'd built the house with her own 2 hands. Mom cleared her throat, glass lifted high. To my beautiful daughter Jenna, who has worked so hard to make this house a home, you finally made it, sweetheart. Then, with a knowing glance in my direction, she added, unlike some people. Laughter stirred through the crowd. Light, polite, but barbed all the same. I felt every eye flick to me, then quickly away. Jenna didn't miss a beat. At least I'm not still renting like some sad soul, she added, her smile wide and blameless. More laughter. I felt the sting sharp and sudden, but I didn't flinch. I just sipped my drink slowly, then looked at Jenna, eyes soft, voice cool. A little jealousy's healthy, right? That one landed. A ripple of surprise passed between the guests. Jenna's smile tightened. Mom blinked, but I just kept sipping, turning to admire the tray of miniature quiches like I hadn't noticed a thing. People moved on quickly, no one likes to linger on discomfort. Conversations picked back up. Laughter returned, but I saw the shift. A few guests looked at me differently now. Curious. Measuring, One of Jenna's coworkers asked what I did, and I gave her the same answer I always did. Product development, tech stuff, nothing glamorous. But I saw the way she leaned in. The way she wanted to know more. I didn't give it to her. Instead, I wandered through the rooms Jenna had proudly shown off, the staged living room, the immaculate powder room, the office she'd filled with fake books and a whiteboard that still smelled new. All lovely. All very Jenna. I left my gift on her desk. A basket with a linen candle, artisanal jam, and a thank you card that read, "Here's to warm spaces and warmer lessons." She'd read into it eventually. As I prepared to leave, Mom caught my arm. "You didn't stay long," she said, half smiling. "Didn't want to take up space," I said. "Wouldn't want to outshine the hostess." She frowned, unsure if it was a joke. I kissed her cheek and walked out. The air outside was cool, sky turning rose gold above the rooftops. I slid into my car, hands calm on the wheel, and whispered the words I'd been saving. Soon. Sunday mornings were usually my quiet reset. No alarms, no calls, just black coffee in my kitchen and the hum of city life leaking through the windows. But that morning, I was done playing quiet. I woke up early, earlier than usual, and stood barefoot in the center of my new kitchen. The marble island gleamed under the morning light. I'd spent the night before arranging a fresh bouquet, white tulips like the ones I'd brought to Jenna's move-in day. The irony wasn't lost on me. Everything was in place. Every drawer organized, every surface polished. I'd even had the floor tiles steamed the day before, though they didn't need it. It was more about ritual now, precision. This house, the stone mansion nestled in Chestnut Hill behind wrought iron gates and ivy-covered walls, was mine. Completely, quietly, irrevocably. No mortgage. No cosigner. No approval process. Just one signature and a wire transfer. I had never intended to invite Jenna, not yet, but after the housewarming toast, "At least I'm not still renting like some sad soul," something inside me turned over, so I did it. I typed the address into a message, no explanation, no caption, just 211 West Milford Lane. "If you're free next weekend, I'll make lemon scones." Simple, soft, true. I sent it, placed my phone on the island, and went back to watering the herb garden just beyond the French doors. Lavender, thyme, spearmint. I wanted the air to smell like peace when she walked in. When I came back inside, my phone buzzed once. Just one text from Jenna. "LOL, still not interested in renting tea rooms, but THX4 invite." My breath caught. I reread it. Slowly, then again, "Not interested in renting tea rooms." That's what she thought. I closed my eyes for a moment. Let the insult sink in, not because it hurt, but because it confirmed everything I needed to know. She still saw me as the girl with mismatched throw pillows and a cute little kitchen. She had no idea what kind of house she just mocked. No idea that the tea room was a vaulted sunroom with hand-carved beams and a chandelier older than both of us. No idea that the lemon scones I'd offered were baked in a dual-fuel French range she'd probably mistaken for decor. And no idea that this time, she would be walking into my world. I whispered into the stillness of the room, "Oh, you'll want to drink tea at this one." Then I smiled. Not the smile they always mistook for meekness. The other one. The one I only wore when I knew something no one else did. That evening, I made the scones anyway. Not for her, for me. For the version of myself who used to cry in cheap apartments, because my mother's voice lived in the corners like mold, always whispering, "You'll never be Jenna." I arranged them neatly on a silver-tiered tray, the same one Mom said was too formal for my last birthday brunch. The house was quiet except for the ticking of the antique clock in the hall and the occasional creak of the old wood floors, soft sounds that made the place feel less like a trophy and more like a home. I placed the flowers, now mixed with sprigs of eucalyptus, back on the island, lit the tall candlesticks, made tea in a porcelain set passed down from a mentor who'd believed in me before I did, and then I waited, not for Jenna, not even for Mom. I was waiting for the moment the gates would open, when the lies they told themselves about me would collapse under the weight of polished stone, glass, and impossible truth. I imagined her face when she pulled into the driveway. I imagined the scream. And I smiled again, because the tea was already steeping, and the door was unlocked. It was a Tuesday morning, a little after 10, when the gate buzzer rang. I had been sitting in the sunroom, reading, with a second cup of tea cooling beside me. I wasn't expecting anyone, not deliveries, not appointments, just stillness. The kind that comes when you've stopped needing to prove anything to anyone. The buzzer crackled again. I rose calm and crossed the marble-floored foyer to the small screen beside the front door. The grainy video feed flickered for a moment before settling on a familiar face, one that hadn't changed since high school, just sharpened like her makeup. Jenna. She was in her car, squinting up at the camera, trying not to look like she was squinting. Then her voice filtered through the speaker, scratchy and uncertain. Hey, I was nearby. Figured I'd finally see your apartment. Apartment. Of course. The corner of my mouth lifted. I pressed the button and spoke gently. Come on in, I made lemon scones. There was a pause, then the gates, those towering wrought iron gates she hadn't realized belonged to me, groaned open. The security system clicked softly behind me as I walked back through the house, down the long central hall, toward the kitchen. I didn't rush. Let her take it in. 3 stories of ivy-covered stone, dormer windows and chimneys, a curved driveway that swept around a circular garden, manicured hedges flanking the front steps, a brass doorbell that hadn't rung in years until I'd restored it. Outside, tires crunched slowly over the gravel. I could see her now through the front window, car creeping toward the front entrance like she was approaching a dream she wasn't sure belonged to her. She parked at an angle, stared, didn't get out. I didn't move. Eventually, I heard the tentative click of car doors, then the uneven rhythm of heels on stone. The knock at the door was soft. I opened it slowly, letting the warm light from inside spill over the threshold. Jenna stood there in black leggings, a blazer, and a face that couldn't decide between forced indifference and confusion. She blinked twice. Is this someone's? She asked. Not accusatory, just unsure. I tilted my head slightly. It's mine. She looked past me, over my shoulder, into the glowing foyer and up the grand staircase beyond. But I thought, her voice trailed off. You thought I was still renting tea rooms, I said. She flushed. That awful pale pink color she got when she was caught, but too proud to admit it. I stepped aside. Come in, I'll show you the kitchen. The click of her shoes on the marble echoed like footsteps in a museum. She walked slowly, eyes darting across the high ceilings, the crown molding, the art I'd chosen deliberately, pieces she'd never recognize but would know weren't cheap. This is your house? She asked again, voice thin. It is, I said, leading her through the hall. Bought it a while ago, cash, no inspections, no fuss. We stepped into the kitchen, where the lemon scones sat perfectly arranged on porcelain, still warm. She didn't sit, she didn't speak, she just stared. And I poured the tea in silence, calm as a queen in her court. Jenna hadn't moved from the kitchen threshold. She stood there like someone who'd wandered into a dream they weren't invited to. Her hand brushed the edge of the quartz island as if she needed to confirm it was real. This is really yours? She asked again, but the question sounded more like a plea this time. Instead of answering, I turned back to the counter and lifted the ceramic teapot, steam curling from its spout like a ribbon. The aroma of lemon and honey filled the room. You still take your tea weak, right? Barely steeped, too much sugar? I asked without looking at her. She didn't respond. Behind me, I could hear her footsteps moving in slow, careful circles, like she didn't want to trigger an alarm. Her gaze swept over the antique light fixtures, the reclaimed wood beams overhead, the soft velvet cushions on the banquette window seat. I placed 2 cups on the tray, arranging the scones beside them. Everything calm, balanced. But then her phone buzzed. And the spell broke. Jenna stared at the screen for a second before her thumb jabbed the screen and she lifted it to her ear. Mom, she hissed, breathless. You have to come right now. I didn't react, just poured the tea. You're not going to believe this, she said, pacing now. She lives in a mansion, like a legit mansion. I don't know how she said she rented it, but this, Mom, she has crown molding in the bathroom. I'm serious. I moved to the glass doors leading to the back patio, letting the light flood in. It was mid-morning, the winter sun pouring gold through the tall windows, casting soft shadows across the herringbone floors. I stood in the light and turned slowly, cradling the teapot in both hands. She caught sight of me then, framed in the doorway, soft light behind me, steam rising gently between us. Wait, she said into the phone, breath catching. She's coming, hold on. She lowered the phone to her side, eyes scanning me like she was trying to locate the trick in the magic show. You said you were still in that little apartment, she muttered. I said I wasn't ready to buy, I corrected, my voice even. But this isn't just buying, this is Chestnut Hill with a gate code. This is marble counters and tray ceilings, and what is this, Lillian? I gave a small shrug, just a house. Her laugh came out sharp, nervous. Right, and I'm the mayor of Philadelphia. I gestured toward the table. You can sit, I made your favorite. But she didn't move toward the chair. Instead, she lifted her phone again, pressing it to her ear. Mom, you need to come right now. No, like right now. I don't care if you're getting your hair done. Cancel it? Seriously, this is wild. She just said it's just a house. Her eyes darted to me again as if expecting me to laugh, to admit it was all staged. That the walls were hollow, the title was fake, the rug would be yanked any second. But I didn't move. I stood calmly at the head of the table, my hand resting on a porcelain cup, the warmth of the tea still rising between us. She whispered into the phone, "She looks like she belongs here." She said it like a confession. Like maybe that was the part that shocked her the most. The doorbell rang 22 minutes later. Jenna had gone silent by then. She'd wandered the perimeter of the first floor, pausing at the library, the fireplace, the hallway of black and white photographs. I hadn't followed her. I didn't need to. Now I opened the door to reveal our mother on the steps. She was still wearing her salon cape, only half snatched off, her lipstick uneven from rushing. Her heels clicked against the stone as she froze just beyond the threshold. Her eyes swept up the columns, the arched windows, the carved doorframe, and then finally settled on me. In the light, with the tea and no need to explain. The foyer swallowed sound. Even Mom's heels seemed to hesitate on the marble, the echo of her steps shrinking as she crossed the threshold. Her eyes moved fast, too fast, over the chandelier, the curved staircase, the tall windows pouring light into the space. "This," she whispered. Whose house is this?" "Mine," I said. The word landed between us, solid and undeniable. Jenna stood behind her, face pale, fingers clenched around her phone like a lifeline. "You told us she was broke," Jenna blurted. "You said she was barely getting by." Mom turned to her, then back to me, lips parting, closing again. "I never said that," I replied quietly, lifting my cup and taking a slow sip of tea. "You assumed." Silence stretched, heavy, pressurized. Mom's voice shook. "Lillian, why didn't you tell us?" "Tell you what?" I asked. "That I was doing well, that I bought a house you never asked." "That's not fair," she snapped. "Family shares these things." I met her gaze. "Family doesn't mock them." Jenna's breath hitched. "We were just joking." "No," I said, "you were measuring, and every time I didn't fit your scale you made me smaller." Mom's shoulders sagged. For the first time she looked old. "We worried about you," she said. "You were always different, always pushing. Your father was like that too. Impossible to manage, always reaching higher." I nodded slowly. "That's not fear, that's control." Jenna's voice cracked. "We didn't know you were capable of this." "That," I replied, "was the problem." They stood there, surrounded by everything they'd never imagined belonged to me, and finally they saw the truth. I had never been behind. I had simply been out of their reach. I set my cup down gently on the table. "I'm not asking for your approval," I said. "I'm done asking for it." Mom swallowed hard. "So what happens now?" "Now," I smiled softly. "Now you learn to speak to me the way you speak to people you respect." Jenna looked away. And in that moment the power changed hands. The hydrangeas bloomed early that year. Soft blues and pale purples spilled over the edges of the stone garden wall, nodding gently in the breeze like they were listening in on the conversation. I had planted them with quiet hands and no real experience, just a hunch that something beautiful could grow where no one expected it. It was mid-morning. The sunlight was filtered through the trees, and the air smelled faintly of rosemary and wet stone. I poured coffee into 3 mismatched mugs and passed them around the small iron table tucked into the corner of my garden patio. Jenna sat to my left, her hair tied up in a loose bun, dressed down for once in leggings and a denim jacket. Across from me, our mother carefully smoothed a stack of papers beside her cup. "So," I said, stirring cream into mine, "I looked over the pension forms. There's a part on page 4 you missed, needs a signature." Mom blinked, then nodded. "Thank you, dear, I was going to bring it to the notary, but..." She looked around the garden like she'd forgotten where she was. "This is nicer." She didn't say sorry. That word hadn't ever been her style. But lately, she paused more when she spoke to me. Chose her words with care. Jenna sipped quietly, eyes on the flowers, her voice softer than I remembered it ever being. "I got the call back, from the brokerage downtown." "That's great," I said. "You've wanted that for a while," she nodded. "It's not guaranteed, but they said my numbers this year were strong." "You're good at what you do," I told her, meaning it. Her eyes flicked toward mine, uncertain, searching. "You really don't hate me?" she asked. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. "I hated how you talked to me, but I don't hate you." She nodded, jaw tight. I didn't think it would ever flip, you being the one with this. She gestured around the garden. It's not just the house, it's the way you carry it, like you've always known who you were. I didn't, I admitted. But I do now. We sat like that for a while, the breeze picking up and brushing the tops of the lavender stalks in the planter behind us. Then Jenna asked it, the question we'd all danced around for weeks. What do you think Dad would say about all this? I looked down into my mug for a long second. The coffee had gone lukewarm, but I didn't mind. He'd say I did okay, I murmured, and that I finally stopped hiding. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It felt earned. Like we'd waded through the storm and come out the other side, a little soggy, a little scraped up, but standing. Mom reached for the paperwork again, adjusting her reading glasses. Always said you were the one with the fire, she said without looking up. We just didn't know what to do with that. You didn't have to do anything, I said, just not put it out. She nodded once, then went back to reading. Jenna shifted in her seat, tapping her mug with a fingernail. For the record, I'm not jealous of the house. I raised an eyebrow, she smirked. Okay, maybe a little, but mostly I'm just proud of you, embarrassed too, but mostly proud. Thanks, I said softly. I'm proud of me too. And I was, not just for the house, or the deal, or the promotion, but for coming back standing tall and staying open, even when I had every reason not to. The garden didn't need to be perfect. Neither did the peace, but it was real. And for the first time in years, that was enough. The cemetery was quiet this time. No cold drizzle. No pointed glances. No mother at my shoulder or sister's whispers trailing behind me, just me and him. The sky above was pale blue, brushed with feathered clouds, and the breeze carried the scent of late summer grass and clover. I followed the same gravel path from a year ago, except this time I wasn't shrinking as I walked. I stood in front of his headstone, worn but clean, the name Carl Morse etched deep into the gray granite. I knelt beside it, reaching into my bag and pulling out the newspaper. Article was folded neatly, the headline crisp. Tech visionary Lillian Morse delivers keynote on ethical innovation. There was a photo to me standing at a podium in San Francisco, wearing a midnight blue blazer and no notes. Just my voice, just my story. I smoothed the paper gently and laid it down at the base of the stone. Hey, Dad, I said. The wind shifted slightly, brushing the hem of my coat. I made it, I continued. I mean, really made it. You probably already know that, but I wanted to say it out loud. My voice wavered just a little, not with grief, but with something quieter, something like peace. They flew me out for the summit, paid for everything, put me in a suite with a skyline view. The keynote went better than I expected. A few venture firms even asked what I'm working on next. I smiled to myself, then looked down. You always said I saw around corners. I think I'm finally starting to believe it. I sat for a moment, cross-legged on the grass, just watching the wind ripple through the trees. It was the kind of day he would have loved. He was never flashy, never loud. But he liked things that were solid, grounded, quietly meaningful. I brought tulips, I added, reaching back into the bag. White ones, like the ones I brought Jenna when she moved in. Funny how that circle closed, huh? I placed them carefully next to the article. Then I stood. I looked at the stone, the name, the years carved below it. You were right to believe in me, I whispered. And this time the silence wasn't heavy, it was full. Like something had landed, deep and true. I turned to walk back, my shoes brushing over fallen leaves. Halfway down the path, I stopped and looked back once, not because I doubted, just to mark the moment. And then I said it, quietly but clearly, to the wind and the sky and the version of myself that used to wonder if she'd ever be enough. I finally believe in me too. That was the end of my story. I still wonder if Jenna calling our mom in a panic that day, dragging her over like she'd uncovered a scandal instead of a truth, was her trying to expose me, or finally see me. Did she do the right thing, or was that just another way to stay in control? Let me know in the comments. And if you felt something in my journey, don't forget to like and subscribe.